Hi, this is Tracy with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap 24 Legacy Season 1, Episode 1. And as the 24 television series goes, each episode is an hour within the day. So we're starting at 12 noon to 1 o'clock p.m. So first, let me start out by saying that I was a huge fan of the original 24 series and was borderline addicted to this show. Like, I lived for the nights that 24 came on. And so I was a little nervous about this new edition, but I must say that so far it has been pretty good, and I like the new kind of urban flair that they've given it by casting a young African American in the slot that was formerly held by Jack Bauer, which was played by Kiefer Sutherland. So here we go. So the show opens with a home being ransacked and its occupants murdered, including a wife, husband, and daughter. And so the murderers contact someone in a van to let them know that they didn't get what they came for. And the husband appears to have been a part of some type of military unit that was sent to do a mission overseas. So the person receiving the call looks at a photo of a group of soldiers, and it appears that two are still alive. It was a black guy and a white guy. So we move on to another home, and we're introduced to Eric Carter, who's going to be the main character, along with his wife Nicole. And so Eric is one of the two people that we saw in the picture, and he was the African American guy. And so he has just returned home from work, and a discussion ensues about them starting a family. And so Nicole lets him know that she doesn't think that he's gotten over what he experienced on his last mission, and which I think is going to be the sole basis of this season of the show. So next we're introduced to Rebecca Ingram, and she is the former head of CTU, which is the it's something terrorist unit. Is it Central Terrorist? I can't remember what CTU stand for, but I'll figure it out. So her husband is running for the presidency of the United States, and she is in the process of transitioning her role. Even though she's left CTU, she's still kind of like in and out training her replacement. So she's at a press conference, and they are introducing her and saying that, you know, she led the U.S. assault on a compound of a terrorist by the name of Ibrahim bin Khalid, and that this guy was killed along with 8 members of his terrorist organization. So the program is actually honoring Rebecca, and she's receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor, you know, for the work that her team did on this mission. And we also learned that 6 members of the team were killed while they were over there. So back at Eric's, he is trying to get Nicole to call in to work when he receives a call from a guy named Ben, who we later find out was a part of the team that Eric led that did the bin Khalid mission overseas. And so he's trying to tell Eric that someone from bin Khalid's organization is searching for them, but Nicole seems annoyed and thinks that Ben is just being very paranoid. And we learned that, you know, when he came back, he was kind of messed up and suffering from PTSD, and I think he got on drugs or something like that. And so she's kind of annoyed that Eric, you know, pays attention to him and listens to what he has to say. So Eric lets her know that he'd rather err on the side of caution. So he's going to send out a special message to the rest of his team. So when he sends the message out, you know, he waits a few seconds and nobody responds. And so Nicole thinks that he's overreacting, but he lets her know that all they have to do is click on something and it'll send a message back to him letting him know that they are okay. But because he's not getting any of those responses back, he thinks that something is seriously wrong. And then as he's talking to Nicole, he looks outside and he sees a van outside, and he tells Nicole, you know, to go up in the attic. So obviously they have like some kind of routine that they practice, that if something goes wrong, you know, what she's to do to get to safety. In true 24 fashion, the bad guys bust in with high power, guns drawn, and all hell breaks out. And so they immediately ask Eric, you know, where is Nicole? And so he says that she called a ride with a friend after, you know, the guys pointed out that her car was in the driveway. So they let Eric know that they are looking for a lockbox that was stolen from Ben Khalid's compound, when his troop was over there doing their mission. And they also let him know that they have killed everyone else on his team, and as well as their family members, with the exception of Ben. So then they take Eric and they're like holding him down in a chair, and then one of the guys gets like this, I don't know if it was antifreeze or what it was, but it was some kind of substance that was in a big jug. And so they're trying to pour it down his throat. But then Nicole, she's listening and she hears what's going on and she begins to panic. And so she throws something out the window to distract them. And so, once the guys like go to look for her, Eric gets loose and just like Jack Bauer, he kills all the bad guys and him and Nicole escape. So over at CTU, Rebecca goes in for a meeting and is talking to someone named Andy. And I think Andy is going to be like the Chloe from the original 24 series. So then Rebecca asks Andy, about someone named Bashir. And so he tells her that Keith Mullins, who is her replacement over CTU, that he fired this Bashir person and replaced him with someone that I didn't catch her name, but she was a young girl. And Andy feels that she's underqualified for the position. So after Rebecca walks off with the Keith Mullins guy, Andy and the new hire have a brief exchange where she lets him know that she's more qualified for the position and that her cousin was a guy named Edlinger Styles and that he was one of the best CTU employees or agents ever, that they ever had. And so I meant to go back and kind of like do some research because that name didn't sound familiar to me. So it may have been like on one of the later seasons of 24 where I really wasn't tuning in that much because the show was kind of dying out at that point. So Mullins seems a little distracted and wants to do things his way, and he tells Rebecca, that she has to trust him if she's going to hand the division over to him. So as she's talking, she gets a frantic call from Eric, and he fills her in on what's going on and lets her know that everyone but Ben is dead and that they are looking for a strong box. So he also lets her know that Ben is off the grid. And so when Rebecca says she will get someone on it, Eric tells her not to tell anyone because only 3 people knew who they were and what their mission was, who their identities are, and that Keith Mullins is one of the people, so she can't tell him anything. Then we move over to Ben, and he's on the phone with someone named Andy, who could be either his sister or his wife. I wasn't able to figure it out, but I'm leaning towards it was his sister. And he's telling her to get their mom and that they need to get out of town. So he wants them to meet him at the bus station, and he will send them to Chicago, where he has a friend that will help conceal their identities and keep them safe. And so when she hangs up the phone, the terrorists are there and they kill her and whoever else was in the house with her. And I'm assuming that it was the mother. So the scene goes to what looks like a high school, and there's a young woman who enters the school and is accosted by a male student named Drew. And so a teacher by the name of David, he comes out and breaks up, the whatever was going on between the two of them. So he pulls Drew into his classroom, and Drew tells him that he thinks Amira, who was the girl that he was arguing with, is planning a terrorist attack along with her brother. And so David tells Drew that he would need to go to the principal with his concerns and just to hold tight and don't say anything to anybody else until he gets back to him. So back at CTU, Rebecca fills Andy in on what's going on and that she needs his help. But of course, he can't tell anyone. So she tells him that it has to be a secret because Keith might be in on whatever is going on and whoever's after Eric. So Andy is able to track Ben down, and they call Eric to let him know where he's at. Then Rebecca calls her husband John and lets him know that she won't be able to make it to his fundraiser, but he's not trying to hear it. So they're using Rebecca, like to boost him up in the polls, and he's basically saying that, the people that are coming to donate to his campaign aren't really coming to see him. They want to be able to meet Rebecca and talk to her, because she's like famous now, for this mission that her team went on. So John's campaign manager questions Rebecca's commitment to his run for the presidency, But John lets her know right off the bat that she's overstepping her boundaries and that she's not to, talk about his wife or question his wife's integrity. So then we have Eric and Nicole, and they're still, speeding through the city, weaving in and out of traffic. I don't know why they haven't been pulled over by the police yet, but they end up at a housing project, and it appears that they're kind of familiar with where they're going. So maybe this is where they grew up at, but you can tell that Nicole isn't happy about being there. So Eric gets out the car and he goes and meets this guy who's like followed by some other guys. And we learn that it is Eric's brother Isaac, and he pretty much controls the housing project. So he's probably like a drug dealer or guns runner or something like that. But he obviously has a lot of respect in that community. So things seem to have really gotten complicated because it looks like Nicole used to be Isaac's girlfriend and caused a rift between the two brothers and their relationship. And Isaac must have a lot of power because I'm thinking those guys that are coming after Eric and Nicole probably wouldn't be, they would probably be too much of a match for, just some, everyday drug dealers. But Isaac must have some really pull and some powerful people around him that Eric is entrusting Nicole to his care. So as Eric and Isaac are talking, and Eric is, basically telling him, please forget, that I took your girl. Please forget that I, left your organization and went and joined the army. We really need your help right now. A woman walks up and she overhears what's going on, and she doesn't seem to be too happy that Nicole is back and that her man is, about to take her in and provide her with protection. So I think this was the point where I said, okay, I like where this this new series is going, and that, what I meant when I said earlier about, having like an urban flair to it. So then we go back to the high school, and the students are in class watching a video when David, who's the teacher, he walks out. So shortly afterwards, Amira receives a text message, and she too gets up and slips out of the classroom. Amira goes to the library, and when she gets there, David is in there waiting for her. So he lets her know that Drew knows about the text messages and that they need to figure something out. So Amira, she's concerned, but she's like, okay, we got to get rid of Drew. But then David, he doesn't really want to do that. And then all of a sudden, Amira turns around and kisses him. So we know that he's not, in his right mind, and that he will probably do anything for her. And he's probably going to be a disposable character in the show. And by the way, I think that Drew said Amira was from the Czech Republic. So she may have some ties to the guys that are in the van, that are trying to get Eric and Ben. We go back to Isaac's, and he goes in to check on Nicole, but she's being very cold and distant. So he lets her know that he isn't trying to come on to her. He just wanted to know if she wanted something to eat. So she apologizes, and then the two start to bickering, and he lets her know that, he's over losing her and that he can handle, whatever she has to say. His main goal is keeping her safe for his brother. So Nicole shares, her concerns about Eric, and that after seeing him kill the guys earlier, she realizes that he doesn't have PTSD, but he misses the life and the excitement, going on these missions and taking out these terrorists. So Aisha, which was the girl that came up, that's Isaac's new girlfriend, she walks in and lets him know that some deal that they're working on is a go. So he tells Nicole that he has to go, and when he walks out, Aisha confronts him about Nicole, and he gets her straight with the quickness and lets her know that that's his brother's wife, and he's just trying to protect her. So it's definitely family first, with these guys. And I'm thinking that Aisha is definitely the girlfriend and not the wife. And she probably wishes that she had that status. And I also think that she is going to pose a problem for everyone. Back at CTU, Eric and Rebecca are on the phone as he goes to try and find Ben, and she's like telling him where Ben is and, which way to go. And so Andy lets her know that Keith Mullins is on to them and knows what's going on. So Keith walks in to confront Rebecca about, using the system, and he's actually like looking at the computer screen, and he sees, what they're trying to do, or he sees Eric in this building or whatever it was. And so Rebecca panics and she tasers him. and so that she can get Eric the rest of the information. But based on the way that Keith Mullins responded, you know, when he looked at the screen and was like, well, what are y'all doing? What's going on? I'm kind of thinking that maybe he doesn't have anything to do with it and he's not the person that's tipping off the terrorists. Back in the van with the terrorists, the head guy learns that his brother has been killed and Eric has gotten away. And they seem to know Ben's location at the same time that Eric zero ins on him. So Eric asks Ben about the strong box and tells him that everyone and their families are dead. And Ben thinks that the strong box has jewelry in it. But when Eric opens it up, he finds like one of those little portable pen drives and it's filled with names and data on a list of people. So they realize that the terrorists have found them and a pursuit starts and they end up at a construction site and another gun battle, you know, takes place. And so Eric manages to kill the last guy in dramatic fashion. And then I remember, you know, just how violent 24 can be. Meanwhile, Ben gets away and he takes the pen drive with him. So Ben calls Eric and tells him not to follow him, you know, but this fool is going to try and find the terrorists and sell them the list himself. And I'm thinking, wow, this was a great season premiere. So what do you guys think of, are any of you out there, you know, veteran 24 watchers? Do you like the new show? Do you think it's going to be as good as the original? And I also think that Kiefer Sutherland is actually working as like an executive producer. So I think it's going to do really good. Leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I will check you guys out next week. Bye-bye.